Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Tuesday, November 24th. So, a couple more days before we hit Thanksgiving, and pretty fast trading so far this week. Maybe things start to die down a little bit. We got a lot of research notes out, for example, this morning. Those will probably die down a little bit tomorrow and so forth. But I'll tell you, so far this has been a really nice week. It's been a really nice couple of weeks, few weeks. If you are bullish this market or a market bull, it's been very, very strong. So, and you look at these numbers here. You have SPY up 1.6%. Qs battled back here. They were actually the best performing index from open to close. Like I said, they kind of came alive there in the afternoon. And the diamonds are up 1.5%. Small caps, another huge day, up 1.9%. Interesting, bonds gave back. They were a little bit weak yesterday. They were weaker even more so today. So interesting, of course, there because, when you talk about long-term interest rates, which TLT is, that really affects different sectors, right? And we talk about that quite frequently, but of course the banks, right? When TLT goes down, that means the long end of the curve, interest rates are going higher. That's good for banks, bad for home builders, and you could see that kind of show up there on the bottom of your screen. You could see the home builders were down 1.7% and down 2.4%. So remember, those were a couple months back really a strong group. That one actually is has been one of the weakest groups. The last couple to few weeks, so we can go over that chart in a minute too. The VIX was down. Gold and silver also, lower. We talked a little bit about gold and silver in the TTG pre-market session, which starts every day at 9 o'clock in the morning, and one of the things, there's a lot of different uses for gold, right? Some people think it's an inflation hedge. Some think it's a safety. It's a complicated trade, that gold, and it's been breaking down. I've been seeing a lot of outflows in GLD. Kind of what that tells me is that when you look around and you see other things like copper go up, when you see Bitcoin go up, right, that is showing that inflation expectations are going higher. Why is it not translating to gold? Because gold, probably there was a lot of money in there for the safety of purpose of gold. So anyway, that's my quick take on gold. I'm not an expert in gold or precious metals, but if you're looking for a reasoning why these names are, why the precious metals are so weak, I think that's part of it, is that people were kind of running into those for safety, maybe even a little bit before the election, and now they're unwinding that trade. Moving down to sectors, right? We talked about already the banks being strong. I'm going to go through some of these charts in a minute, but today was the steel names that were super strong. Again, a lot of rotation, right? We could probably put that in here again. Rotation amongst, I can't type today, geez. Rotation among sectors, right? And there's nothing wrong with that in terms of the overall market. It's actually very healthy, to see sectors rotate and rotate around like that, where money is being kind of what's kind of like fluctuated through different groups, right? Kind of rolling is probably the term that I was looking for. So again, there's nothing wrong with that, and there's a couple of thoughts from that. Number one is, as we go down the rest of these sectors, but again, it seems a lot of what we saw a little bit yesterday too. Yesterday looked more value than anything else. You could see value and growth kind of for the day. Still, value outperformed a touch. When you have things like banks and steel and energy up again. Look at energy up over 5% again. So that's now 2 days in a row, I believe. And the way that I would kind of, I'll talk a little bit about how I traded today, and what we're kind of seeing in option flow today too. I would say that the option flow for the last couple of days, it's been extraordinary in terms of the call activity. There's there's so many areas that are showing this momentum. It was also clean energy for the last, energy for the last couple weeks, but really like the last week, it's been, the last 2 weeks, it's been absolutely on fire. But it's tough because, we started to see this last week with clean energy, where we started to see a whole bunch of call buying in about 15 different names, right? And we're still seeing that. So you really have to kind of, as much as people I see a lot of traders that are dependent on watching option activity. It's never going to tell you it's going to give you ideas, right? When you start to see that call activity and when it changes, when you start to see different groups being bought that you didn't see before, that's really a good signal. And you can use that and translate that over into the technicals and kind of pick up some trades from there. However, as this trade continues to go along, you will see the same thing, right? They're not going to let up. So if we look at PBW today, which was actually flat and was down from where this thing, this opened up strong again, but you could see the clean energy, performance for the day. It actually sold off from the open. So if you bought some of these things today, you're kind of doing it wrong because, as we've talked about, they're really got extended, right? So from the open, they actually fell 3.3%. Now, if you look over to the call activity within this group, there's not much that really changed from today over the last couple days. So you have to use your own judgment because they just buy everything, right? Some of it is retail, some of it is institutional. They just keep buying and buying and buying. It doesn't really, the price action is not going to matter too much to them, right? We saw that in a lot of names today. So they're going to get caught, right? All these call buyers, within this group, right? And I'll give you some examples. But if you look at, so the point that I'm trying to make as I bring this up, right? Obviously Tesla had a monster day today, and that's one of the members of our weekend watch list trade that we've got going on. But I'm sorry, I'm just looking through some of these names. But they also, all these names in here. Plug saw calls all day. Neo saw calls all day today. BLNK, it's the same thing. BE also in here. So you kind of have to use a little bit of your own judgment, right? So if the call buyers and the call activity got you into some of these names, you have to run with the ball and figure out when you're going to take these positions off. Now, I'll tell you, for me, sometimes I miss, and I think we've all done that a little bit too. Some of these moves have been so ginormous that you miss some of the move. Now, some of these things are not the highest quality names. When you get to your second tier, third tier, right? So like, I'll give you an example. I'll give you two examples. CSIQ was one name that I traded and I got out of today. It hit, where I think it could get to. It could break out further, but that might be a new trade for me. Riot is a name in the Bitcoin space, which is another area that's been on fire today. I took this trade off today. And you could see what it did today. It was down 5.8% today. So why did I take this thing off today? I took actually target pre-market, right, from a name that I just put on a few days ago, because these are not, like, for me, high quality names. These are momentum names. Like Riot is not something that I want to position into. It's a trade, not an investment. So with trades, you gotta figure out where you're going to exit, and you got to figure out how much greed you're going to have in these things. Now if the name continues to trend, you want to try to ride this thing for as much of the trend as you can, and then basically have a trailing stop. Well, my trailing stop got hit in this thing today, and I got out of it at 690, which is still a profit. But some of these things, again, you have to ask yourself, like, there's too many people that are thinking, I think, on Twitter, that are like, hey, it's different this time. This is the new, it's going to be EV and forever. Just realize that when we do see these bouts of momentum in different groups, they go into favor and they kind of go out of favor for a little while. And the faster they go up, they'll come down very fast too. So just keep that in mind. That's one whole big conversation about what we've kind of seen in this group. So don't fall in love. Try to be objective as possible. Try not to fall in love with groups, right? I think we've seen that too with the software group, right? Because the software group has really worked for a long time, right? Really came back into play earlier in the year. And I think, from my level of watching, there's too many people that are still wrapped up in the software group. Yes, there are some great names in the software group, but you don't want to stay married to these groups, because once they become out of favor, sometimes what we see is they stay out of favor for more than a couple days, right? If they stay out of favor and then they come back and they stick in their trend, then that's great. But you really want to pay attention to when names, where it's not just an adjustment, it's actually a full rotation, like out of the group, and it becomes out of favor, right? So, for example, right, we started to see a lot of momentum in the home builders group. The home builders are having difficulty here. They're not able to. So again, they're not breaking down. If I said that in the beginning of the video, that's a mistake. But they're certainly not as strong. XHB actually made a 52-week high yesterday. So again, different group. Even though one is called home construction, one is called home builders. But these are you want to pay attention to when things start to kind of turn a little bit, and make sure that you don't have 10 positions on in one small group. That could be rather painful for you. So anyway, that's a lot to kind of go over for these groups. For me today, watching this energy group, I had tried an energy name about a week ago, Devon Energy, and I unwound it. I was kind of chicken in the name, and Devon Energy has continued to go higher, as well as the energy names which took out this virgin point of control, which for me was, hey, that may be as far as they go. We actually have gotten above there and significantly have moved higher. Same thing happened with XLE. Now XLE did take out another VPOC today, and then of course OIH has also been legging higher and has been actually has went from. I mean, this is a colossal move. So as much as I talked about clean energy, what I think a lot of people, including myself, haven't given full attention to is what has happened in this move in energy stocks. This was basically since the beginning of the month. This was at 100. It's made a 50% move. So the energy trade has been really, really aggressive. Regional banks have also come out of that little flag pattern, right? We've seen this so many times that it's kind of tough to get your arms around some of this stuff, because how many times have we seen these little rallies in the banks, right? You get 3 days of rally and poof, 2 or 3 days and poof, went back to the lows. Big rally here. Oh, is it going to get above the 200-day moving average? Nope. Gave a good portion of it back. It did make a lower high. A little move here, made a lower low from this point here, and then since then it's looked different. It's gotten since it got over the 200-day moving average, it's been acting different. Now a lot of these things, right, are some of them, maybe they come back to here, right? Also the auto space. Here's another group that I think is kind of interesting right now. Ford. Now, Ford has made it all the way back. Now, don't forget, is Ford completely, is it a new company? Or, meaning is it going to do something different? Because I still kind of see it back in this lower trend, even though it's recouped all of the major sell-off. Does it now become a leader? Or has it just been, or is it just a reversion to the mean? As of now, we don't know that. For now, it's a reversion to the mean, right? And a big reversion to the mean, right? But if you look at this overall trend, we could look at GM too. GM is now different, right? So GM not only made a reversion to the mean, but popped out and is now leading. So, you have that going for it too. It's GM has made bigger strides than Ford. All right. So I'll tell you, for me, I, you know, I can't chase some of these moves up here. This was a little bit of an exercise in discipline for me. I kind of made the decision early this morning because like I said, we saw call activity in so many names that were already up 5% for the day or 4%. I can't establish it for me. I can't establish a trade when a name is up that big. Other than you could scalp a little bit, but I can't start a swing trade personally. So you can kind of see what I did today. I started some names like I didn't think Alley. Right. So for example, like look at Wells Fargo today, which again, I said this earlier on Twitter. I think what we've seen this year is a lot of names that have a high short interest be attacked. Now the issue is because once if a name has high short interest, that can cause a lot of covering in a name, right? The shorts have to cover their short position, right? That's buying on the tape, and that can really make things exciting. What's changed in the last few months is there's not a lot of names with a high short interest anymore, right? There's less and less names that have over 15% short interest. So now what we're seeing is names that are underowned are going after, like a Wells Fargo today. So this was a good example. I could not chase Wells Fargo, even though we saw a huge amount of calls go up in this name, but I couldn't chase it, up here for the day. Now, if you did, you managed to make a little bit of money, but a good portion of the money was made in the first hour, and that's not where the calls went up. Right? If you look at where the calls went up in Wells Fargo. So you kind of have to ask yourself. And of course, there's things that you can do to kind of cheat a little bit, right? You can take a smaller position when you're chasing. But you have to ask yourself too, is like chasing a name up 4%, are you going to get another 4% tomorrow? You may. This could maybe go up to $30. I would rather go into something that's, I think, a little bit better. I went into this Alley. Again, it's already made a decent move. This is more of a leader within the group. Maybe this thing can kind of punch out to 32 and then even higher 34. I think that's what I'm looking for. GS was a name that I had talked about a week ago. I don't have any position in this thing, but this thing made it all the way up. I was looking at this thing when it just punched out and got through value, but I think the move is kind of mature. So sometimes that's what trading is guys. Is it's a little bit of an exercise in patience and not chasing everything. I would rather look for things that are just starting to move out of consolidation rather than are extended. So that's what I did today. We'll see if that works out for me. Right, being a little bit more selective. I took this trade. This is a name that we've seen call buying. Saw some call buying in it yesterday. I think this thing can get up to 41.25, and then maybe to this VPOC here, and then maybe to the VPOC up there. All depends on how I manage this one. All right. I tried to do something different to, obviously this would be for a trade because I don't think this is a high quality name. I think it's more just speculative. I took that one off for a small loss down here. Shaq is another name too that I figure, could extend. It consolidated here after this big gap up. Maybe this thing can get over to get out of this consolidation and then move to the next area of resistance. So that's kind of what I'm looking at in that name too. A few other names that we talked about at the end of the day. Every time that we put on a trade, by the way, where is our channel? Right, I detailed the setup in here. A couple names that I'm watching. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of calls that went up for pins, January pins. It's come in a little bit. Right, it's certainly not as extended. I mean, it's still up a lot, right? But you got 2 down days, and I got support. As long as I have a support level to trade against, it bounced off this 200 period moving average. There's also some support down here at 61.71. If it wants to sell off another day, I don't mind adding to it down there. MDB reports, that's a name to watch too, I think, in the next couple days. AMD is so close. If you're looking for a level in AMD to trade off of, you got one right here, 86.14. So I'm kind of anticipating a little bit here because we have not had this breakout. Now, this happened in Apple too a few weeks back, so you have to be careful about anticipating. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 candles, 6th one touched it and failed and has moved back. So you want to make sure that doesn't happen to AMD. And it's hanging in there. It's very close to the top of value, but it's got to break out. It's got to break above 86.14. All right, another one to watch, to maybe put on your radar. This is getting pretty tight, this consolidation in Amazon. Right, you know that these FANG names just have not been in demand. I think the FANG names personally have been a source of funds. Right, people are getting out of some of their positions. They probably felt the FANG names as kind of a warm blanket over since COVID. I think funds are getting out of these names, and then they're going into other places like value. However, it's been several days now of consolidation. The only issue with this, not the only issue, but one of the issues with Amazon is that every time this thing has rallied, it's been making lower highs, and it really rallies are being sold, which means again that people are unwinding into strength. All right, so if you're looking for a level to watch, right, because this is the best thing, right? Have a level, set an alert in your trading system, and then you don't have to watch it unless it triggers. 31.40 is the level to watch. All right. I actually have an alert at a little bit higher than that, 31.45, just so there's a little bit of tolerance. All right. And if it triggers, I'll try a trade in this one. I mentioned Tesla in the beginning of the video. Super strong. I think you kind of have that gamma move now going in Tesla, right? They keep buying calls, more and more calls. When that does happen, when they're just buying and buying and buying, as a basic function, market makers have to go out and buy the stock to hedge, right? So the more it goes up, the more they have to hedge, right? So you have the gamma move going on here. My prediction is that this can continue to run into the rebalance state, and then it will be a kind of sell the news once it goes into the S&P. That's my take. We have moved all the way to R2, which is an extension away from the value area. So again, notice how slim the value area was for the month. Gave a little bit of a false breakdown and out. Of course, news driving that too, and getting people to kind of pile into the stock a bit. All right, so that is that. How's our weekend watch list doing, by the way? If you go to here, let's bring up portfolio. All right, we're up 2.2% for the week. So again, this is one of our programs. I do have Tesla in this, right? So I bought all these on Monday morning, and we're outperforming quite nicely the market here. It's interesting. A couple names that I thought would do, or were doing a little bit better, sold off here a little bit. But you can see this is equally weighted, meaning every name gets the same weight. And you can see we've got far better names. We've got many more names doing better than worse, I should say. The solar ETF. I got a lot of questions today in the room. Well, what about this name in solar? What about JKS? What about First Solar? What about CSIQ? If they all look the same, guys, and if they're all moving the same way, just buy the ETF. Right? I think that too many times we get really kind of caught up in the details about the setup in like this one stock. They're all moving together right now, and it's actually the same thing with the clean energy too. They're all moved together, right? So you don't have to own 10 names. If you want to, you can own 1 or 2 single names and then the ETF. Because I'll tell you that's what happens. The one whole group. There's not much difference between the leaders and the laggards when something like this happens. But yeah, I was saying this in the room, and that's why I put this in the that's why I bought this in the watch list. When I went over our video for the weekend on Sunday, I said, hey, a lot of these solar names are looking the same. I'm just going to buy the solar ETF, right? It's funny. You'll think these guys on Twitter are magicians. Oh, I found the setup in this one. Really? Because the whole group is doing it. So don't act like you're a magician. uh, yeah, and then a couple other names. NTES is doing well too. So yeah, we had a really nice week of performance last week too. We outperformed huge last week for this watch list. Let's see if I threw it in here. Maybe I didn't. It should be in here someplace. Yeah, I think this is when I took the snapshot on Friday. Yeah, we were up 3.1% versus the S&P down 0.5% last week. That was our watch list last week. So again, we're coming out with really good performance again. Yeah, this was on November 20th. So, all right, guys, that's it for today's video. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.